welcome John Lockley, who is with us from South Africa. Even right now, I think he's in Canada, I think. And there is a lot to say about John, so I will keep it as short and sharp as I can. So John is a fully initiated and ordained Sangoma, which is a South African shaman in two lineages, the Xhosa and the Swazi nations. He's an author, he's written a few books, a Zen meditation practitioner with 30 years experience. He holds an honors degree in psychology and is, that's mine, a wisdom keeper and international shamanic teacher. Now, his apprenticeship to become a fully initiated African shaman took 10 years, and it was foreseen in a dream by his teacher, who invited him to be her apprentice. And he was one of the first white men in recent times after Apartheid to be awarded the title Senior Sangoma by his elders. He sees himself and has pioneered a bridge between modern Western psychology and traditional South African healing. And his Xhosa name given by his teacher is the messenger or bridge between the cultures, which I love. I think it's a beautiful name. He's also a Zen meditation practitioner with 30 years experience. He took Buddhist precepts with Zen master Su Bong from North Korea in 92. For the last 15, 16 years, he has been facilitated Humanity and Way of the Leopard retreats worldwide, teaching people mainly how to reconnect with their ancestors' spirit and with the earth. A passion of John is teaching people Indigenous African medicine to help them to reconnect to the earth. And this he facilitates to the dream and trekking retreats in the Kalahari Desert every year. So there's more to John, but I don't want to say more because it takes time away from his talk. And he will talk about war and peace and cultivating humanity. So John, over to you. We are looking forward to hearing you. There you go.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Welcome. Thanks for sitting with me today on this beautiful Saturday. And, as the world is in turmoil, and as we all know, so what can we do as individuals to help ease the suffering of our fellow human beings? I think that's a very, very important question nowadays. And often, as I don't know about you guys, but I certainly feel this. Often we might feel a sense of frustration and a sense of inadequacy, and not sure how to help when there's war in another part of the world, and many people are dying, and it pulls at our heartstrings, and we feel a sense of powerlessness. I think that's in a nutshell, that sense of powerlessness in the face of rampant suffering. Okay. So the old teachings from where I'm from, and I'm talking about my Sangoma teachings, speak about Ubuntu, which is the circle, that circle of humanity, where we are this hive, like this collective consciousness. And as we connect with our own consciousness, as we connect with our own humanity, then we face outwards and we face the wilderness. And this all seems wonderful. So you might say, this sounds wonderful, but how can we help the suffering of those people? And how can we ease the war and stop the war, just to stop it? So we all know that war begins and starts inside the hearts of man and woman. And war comes from that sense of inadequacy and that sense of fear inside of us. And also it comes from not looking at your own shadow, not looking at your own projections. And so as the war rages in Ukraine and Gaza and the Middle East, it's a time for us to really look at our own shadow, really look carefully at our own shadow and look at our own pain and look at how we might project our pain onto others and make someone else responsible for our pain, and whether you're feeling a victim or whether you are feeling an oppressor, all these kinds of energies we inherit. We inherit from our ancestors, and then we just go into a sense of autopilot, go into a sense of autopilot of hatred, of bigotry, and of prejudice. Autopilot of hatred, bigotry, and prejudice. And we have to really look at that first. We have to look at that. So the process in healing the human race is a process on us first healing ourselves and looking at our own shadow, at our own story, and being aware of how do we project that onto the outer world? How do we project our prejudice and our pain, just projecting our pain on the outer world? So there's an old saying that hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. So when you're studying psychology and you're studying child psychology and you see how children can be hurt and then how they turn into adults that are hurt and how that cycle of suffering continues, how do we stop that? Well, if you are feeling hurt, feel the hurt. Don't make someone else responsible for it. Sometimes someone is responsible. Maybe it's a parent or a guardian and they are responsible. But a whole community of people, a whole population of people is not responsible for that. And that's where the war continues. So the process of Ubuntu, that process of connecting to our humanity, that circle behind me that I'm talking about, that process is a process of deep introspection where each of us are called to our own humanity first. So we can't save the world, but we can look at our own consciousness and our own pain first. That is our responsibility. That is our responsibility. So making someone else responsible for it, or making a population of people responsible, or you're brought up in a particular culture where they said, those people over there, look at them, they did this to us, they did that to us, they did this to us. And then being aware of all those voices inside of you and being aware of that programming is a first step. It's a first step to being aware of your own shadow. And on that note, I just want to share a story about Nelson Mandela. So I'm sure most of you have heard of Nelson Mandela. He was in prison in South Africa for 27 years during the Apartheid regime, and in which many people could say is also a civil war that I lived through, the civil war, and it was a very difficult time. And when you read in Nelson Mandela's autobiography, there's this pivotal moment with Nelson Mandela where he experienced that shadow inside of him. And that pivotal moment is what changed South Africa and also turned Nelson Mandela into a humanitarian, not just a politician, but more like a priest. He became a beacon of humanity in terms of his teachings and his statesmanship. So this pivotal moment happened for him when he had been in prison for, I'm not sure, a number of years. I think it could have been 5 years, okay? And he was about to go to bed, about to go to sleep. And often that is when we have these epiphanies, all of us do, when the outer world starts to recede, where the noise of the world starts to go down, where we start to go inwards into our own spirit. So as he started to prepare for bed, there was this voice inside of him which said, the hatred that you have for white people can kill you. this hatred which you are experiencing can kill you. And he felt, yes, that's true, because he felt all this hatred. White people treating me like this, I'm in jail. I mean, he had very, very good reasons to be filled with hate, very good reasons. But that little voice inside of him said, Nelson, this hatred can kill you. Never mind the other people, it's going to kill you, the hatred. So then he went to sleep, and then when he woke up, it was that same voice. I think it was a woman's voice, and she said, Nelson, you need to befriend the enemy. You need to befriend the enemy. And he was, befriend white people? What is that about, befriending white people? And then the next thing, there was the jailer was opening the door to his jail cell, and it was this young white jailer, and he felt the anger that he was experiencing, and he felt that voice of telling him to befriend the enemy. And then he said to the young white jailer, what made you decide to become a jailer? And the young guy said, well, I had no choice. And Nelson Mandela was like, in his mind, he said, in his mind, white people always had a choice. So this is the programming I want to share with you. This is part of the story. In his mind and his programming, white people always had a choice, and they were always affluent, okay? So the next thing he's thinking, what do you mean you didn't have a choice? And he said, well, my father died when I was 15 years old, and I've got lots of brothers and sisters, and I had to leave school, and I had to get a job and support my family. I had to support my mother with all my younger siblings. And straight away, Nelson Mandela was feeling, he said it was the first time he started to feel compassion towards a white person, because in that moment, he thought of his own story, and when he was 7 years old, his father died. But it was a very different karma he experienced, because his father was the advisor to the prince of the Xhosa nation. So when his father died, the prince sent emissaries to his home, and he was brought up in the royal household. And to be brought up in the royal household meant that he went to private schooling. It meant that he was able to go to university. It meant that he didn't have to go working at the age of 15. It meant that he had food and he was well looked after. So in that moment, he felt a sense of compassion for this young jailer. And then he carried on talking to him, and he said to him, so how did you become a jailer? And he said, well, there weren't many jobs available for me at the age of 15. And then as soon as I turned 16, I was able to get this job, and it's got good benefits. And it meant that I could get good health care for my family. So he thought, well, that makes sense. And then in his mind, he was like, if I was in his position, I might have done the same thing. So that compassion started to change him a little bit, but he still felt that anger. So he carried on talking to him, and he just said, where were you brought up in South Africa? And he said, the Eastern Cape. He said, I'm from the Eastern Cape as well. And then just as offhandedly, he just started talking to him in Xhosa. He said, uyatheta isiXhosa. And he said, ewe, ndiyasazi isiXhosa. Masithethe isiXhosa ngoku. He said, do you speak the Xhosa language? And he said, yes. And the next thing, they were speaking in fluent Xhosa. And this was unbelievable. For Nelson, it was unbelievable. And for the young jailer, suddenly he was talking to Nelson Mandela, not just in English or Afrikaans, but in the Xhosa language. And this was a pivotal moment in Nelson Mandela's politics, but also it's changed him because he befriended the enemy. He befriended the shadow inside of him. He befriended the prejudice that he was holding about white people. And when he became the president of South Africa, this young jailer was on the right of him, sitting next to him, because he had become one of his closest friends. Okay, so that story is a pivotal story. And later on, years later, Nelson Mandela was being interviewed, and I think this is very relevant, so I'm going to share this now. Nelson Mandela was being interviewed by the Palestinian Youth League and the Israeli Youth League. And I just happened to be sitting and watching TV at the time. It was many years later. Mandela was the president of South Africa then. And they said to him, how did you bring peace to South Africa? How did you bring peace to South Africa? And he said, well, every day we would have meetings, me and F.W. de Klerk, and we would meet and we would shake hands, and then we would sit down and discuss this, this unilateral government, this joint government of the NP government and the ANC. And he said we would fight and we would argue and we would discuss things and we'd fight. And sometimes we would have terrible arguments, and then we would leave at the end of the day. We would wish each other well, we would shake hands, and then the next day it would all start again. And then they said to him, the Palestinian Youth League person and the Israeli Youth League said, how come you didn't break up? How come you just carried on going? And he said there was too much at stake. There was too much at stake. When I was speaking, I knew I wasn't speaking for me, Nelson Mandela. I was speaking for all the people in South Africa. And when F.W. de Klerk was speaking, he also realized that he was speaking not just for himself, but the whole of South Africa. But most importantly, we realized that if we disrespected one another, everything was finished. So in the beginning, we would respect one another and we would shake hands and we would have our discussion. And at the end, we would shake hands again. And because we realized without respect, these meetings would not happen and South Africa would fall into a terrible, terrible civil war. So we needed to respect each other. So that's another cornerstone of this Ubuntu circle. First is becoming aware of your own shadow, your own prejudice, and your own autopilot, where you're brought up to treat another race of people or another group of people in a particular way. And then you start to question that because of your life experience and your engagement with other people. And then the next thing, which is very important, is respect. Respecting all of life. Whether you like someone or not, respect is not earned. Trust is earned, but respect is a given. We should be respecting all of life, no matter what. You know, there's an old saying that says respect is earned, and that's not true. We need to respect all of life. Trust is earned. We can't just trust anyone without developing a relationship of trust. But we need to respect all of life. So when we look at old cultures like martial arts from the East, from Korea, Japan, China, before they start their combat in terms of like karate, they would bow to each other. And then they would fight and do what they do. And at the end, they would bow to each other. And I think in modern warfare, that bowing and respecting the enemy, I think that is gone. And I think that is what we need to bring back as a human race. And that is why I'm sitting here right now with all of you. We need to respect one another and respect one another's humanity and not blame and shame and blame and shame. That's another story. But the first is to respect the humanity of someone, whether you like them or not, whether they're an enemy or not. We need to respect, bring back that basic core honor principle that we have all inherited from our ancestors and from other cultures like in the East. And that's about respecting your opponent. So this is what happened in that situation with F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela, and fighting and arguing, but at the same time there would be this mutual respect. And this is what changed the trajectory of South Africa. So I remember being in South Africa as a medic in South Africa, and I was I was looking after Special Forces soldiers. That was part of my job. And I remember there was this one particular soldier that was in one of the battalions that had just come from Angola. And he was a fierce fighter, fierce. And he was in an infamous unit of Special Forces soldiers. So when he came into the ward, everyone was a bit nervous. And I remember just doing my notes and preparing for the patients for the next day. And I'd often feel this shadow, like this dark leopard, just in the peripheries. And bear in mind, I was only 18 years old, so I was very young man. And I'd just feel this shadow in the periphery standing by. And I'd carry on doing my work because I realized it was this particular soldier, okay? He was very battle hardened and he was very fierce, and everyone was very nervous of him, you know? So this went on. I think he'd been in the ward for maybe a week or so, and this had been going on for a week, and I just felt him often in the peripheries just watching me. And then one day he came directly up to me in a fierce way, and I was kind of shocked. And he just looked at me, and then he started talking. And he said, "I've been watching you, medic. I've been watching you." And I'm like, yes, I know. I know, Corporal. I know you've been watching me. And he said, "And I watch and I see that you treat all of us equally, white and black. You treat us equally." And he said, "You are not a racist." And he said, "And today, you are my friend." And he said, "If you need anything, if anyone is giving you any problems, you come to me, okay?" And he said, "I've been watching you, and you help all of us in a good way. Thank you." And so I was very taken with that, because I didn't expect that from him. And it goes back to that old teaching of, just basic respect, and what does that engender? How does that change the energy around us? And I, at the age of 18, been in the South African Army as a conscripted, drafted soldier. It was a very difficult situation for me, and I just felt that all I could do is just respect everyone, and that was one of my experiences. I've got other experiences and other stories, but I wrote that in my book, Leopard Warrior. So if you want to read more, you can. But that job of becoming a human being, my elders, my Sangoma elders speak about that, and they say to me, we are born as human beings, looking like human beings. But they say to me, we have to make a decision to become a human being. He says, we're born as humans, but we have to make a decision, they say, to become human. And they said to make a decision, they say it means we have to make a decision to connect to our Ubuntu, they say, our humanity. And to connect to your Ubuntu, they say, we need to listen to our dreams. We need to listen to those inner voices that might have shadow or they might have fear. We need to listen to that. And we also need to honor our own ancestors. So often that fear and hatred towards the human race can start because people are not honoring their ancestors and they're not loving their own families. So part of making a decision to become a human being is also making a decision to love your own family, so loving your ancestors and where you come from, regardless of whether they're good or bad, but just sending them love because they have passed the baton of the human race on to you. They've passed their DNA and their kanya, their shining, and you are just bowing to that and saying thank you. So that is a very important principle. So as my elders say, we are born human. We need to make a decision to become human, which means feeling your umoya, feeling your own spirit inside of you, feeling your grief and your pain and your fear, feeling your shadow, feeling your own dreams, honoring your ancestors, honoring the great spirit, that divine essence that comes into us, and then we are ready to go into the world. So often what people, when there's war, is a clear sign that what is coming into someone is fear. It's a clear sign that people are on autopilot of prejudice. And it's also a clear sign that people are disrespecting one another. And it's a clear sign that they are not befriending the enemy inside of them first. And then once we bring in that respect principle, once we do that inner work, once we be aware of that autopilot of prejudice that we may be moving in, then things change. And all it takes is a handful of people to change the trajectory of the human race. I'll say that again. All it takes is a handful of human beings to change the trajectory of the human race. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let's go back to medicine. To create healing, we can put 1 drop of medicine into this mug and it can create healing, 1 drop. Likewise, you could put 1 drop of poison into this mug, 1 drop, and it can kill a lot of people. Just 1 drop. So on that principle of poison or healing, each one of us has a decision to make. Do you want to be that 1 drop of poison or that 1 drop of healing? And like I say, 1 drop is what will change this mug of liquid, 1 drop. And we know that from medicine, we know that from science, and I'm sure all of you know the truth of that as well. So in principle, when we're dealing with spiritual issues of activism, if we want to become activists and revolutionaries, the revolution starts when you close your eyes. So let's do that right now. Let's start that revolution. Close your eyes. Feel your own heartbeat. And make a decision right now to not criticize yourself. And that inner saboteur comes and says, oh, you're too chubby and you need to go and put some cream on your face and watch all those nice chocolates you eat. And you just tell it, here's some chocolates for you and here's some flowers. I'm just going to be okay right now. So closing your eyes and making a decision to put up that white flag to the inner critic, the inner saboteur, and all those inner voices telling you what to do. Closing your eyes and just being present for a few moments. So don't worry about the rest of what's happening. Just closing your eyes and just being aware of this moment. Breathing into your heartbeat. And allow stillness of the world to enter you. So taking a deep breath in and breathe in the wilderness from outside you. Breathe in the wilderness from nature outside your home. Whether there's bird song, whether there's traffic noise, breathe in the wilderness from outside your home. Allow that stillness to permeate you. Feeling the drum of your own heartbeat as your chest is rising and falling. And then doing a bow to your ancestors down your mother's line. To your mother's people, bow to them with a sense of respect and love. And then bowing to your father's people with a sense of respect and love. And welcoming them into you to walk with you on this human road. And be aware right now, I want you to be aware of something. Do you struggle to bow to your mother's people? Do you struggle to bow to your father's people? And if you do, that's where your work begins, right there. Right there is where your work begins. Never mind the Middle East and Ukraine. Right there is where you need to work. If you find it difficult to welcome in your ancestors down your mother's side and father's side, there is your work right there. Welcome to the human race. Welcome to the mud, because the mud can only be turned into fertilizer. The mud can only be turned into fertilizer when you become aware of your own pain and your own issues. So bowing to mom and dad and their lineage, and then bowing to any kind of wisdom keepers or adopted ancestors who have helped you, and then have a sense of looking upwards and bowing to the divine. You can call it the Great Spirit, Mother Nature, the Wind Spirit, the Great Dreamer, bowing to the divine, welcoming the divine into the space. Because a core part of Ubuntu is also humility. Respect, humility, and grace. That is what opens the door to the spirit world. And when there is war, it means that inner world, that inner spiritual world, hasn't been occupied for a while. The room inside of you, which is the room of spirit, hasn't been occupied for a while. So all each of us need to do is occupy that room inside of us, where we open the windows, we air it out, we let the wind in, let the wind of nature into us, and allow it to fill that room inside of us with spirit, and feel all the pain that you may have without dumping it on someone in another room. Just feeling how does it feel to be alive? Bowing to your mother's people, your father's people. Bowing to any adopted ancestors and wisdom keepers. Bowing to the divine. And as we say in Xhosa, siyabulela, amakosi amakhulu. We give thanks to the divine for the gift of life. So just to wrap it up, I'm just going to do a little Sangoma chant, and it's Sangoma chants are very evocative, and they have very strong drum beat. And the drum beat is to help wake you up and help you connect with your humanity. So I'm just going to do that and then open it up for questions. Okay, so here we go. So just stay with the presence of your own spirit. The whole idea of the Sangoma chant and drum beat is also to help you occupy that room inside of you of spirit. And as we occupy the room of spirit inside of us, straight away there's less war. Because often war is a sign of a lack of occupation of spirit and a lack of soul, lack of soul, okay? So the more we fill ourselves up with soul and spirit, the more forgiving and loving we can all be. So here we go. The first person we need to be forgiving to is ourselves. So if you feel like you're criticizing yourself, stop it. Here we go. So you can just, if you feel like closing your eyes, you can. And here's my beautiful drum, which many people have seen over the years. It's traveled with me everywhere. And this drum was given to me in a dream. And then I found it. The exact drum from my dream, I found it. So it's very special. So here we go. Here we go. Closing your eyes if you need to, otherwise just feeling your own body, feeling your own beauty. Yeah, Zalibamu, Vulenle, Lava Zalibamu, Myonge, Myonge. Tamagui, Myonge, Tamagui, Myonge, Tamagui, Myonge, Tamagui, Myonge. Zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu. Oh, I'm a younge, oh, I'm a younge. Tamagui, I'm a younge, tamagui, I'm a younge, tamagui, I'm a younge, tamagui, I'm a younge. Zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu, volenle lava zalibamu. Oh, I'm younge, oh, I'm younge. Volenle lava zalibamu, volenle lava younge, volenle lava zalibame, volenle lava zalibame. Volenle lava zalibame, volenle lava zalibame. Oh, I'm a younge, oh, I'm a younge. So that's a very short one, but what I'm saying is volenle lava younge, which means open the way, great ones, wisdom keepers of the human race. I'm a younge, volenle siangola manyange. We honor and praise you. We bow to you with reverence. So what is that doing? It's feeding the human race. It's feeding that consciousness that's been passed on to us. And so I wish that for all of you, and I wish that to our human family, wherever they are, whatever color their skin is, whatever language they speak. I pray for peace. I pray for respect. I pray for cooperation, and I pray for Ubuntu. Amago.
Thank you so much, John. That was really wonderful and inspiring, reminding us of the inner work that we need at this time. And also those stories that you shared. I mean, you kind of talking about the stories from a while ago or from long ago, but gosh, are they so relevant now, where in these days we can see ourselves and society and our communities becoming so much more polarized and divided, and that principle of respect kind of being so crucial now. Just going to go to some questions, and starting with that kind of point on that principle of respect. Kate asks, what do we do if people do not respect others, if people aren't working from that same principle of respect?
Feel sorry for them. We need to, when someone is not being respectful, it's very easy for us to not be respectful back. You know, but we have to keep being respectful, you know. And depends what kind of position they're in. You know, it can be very difficult when you see, this is actually what happened in South Africa. You know, the colonizers came in, and the traditional people in South Africa were very respectful, and they had this particular code of conduct. and they noticed the colonizers didn't have that code of conduct. And they were so shocked because they'd never come across human beings that were like that. And they actually thought they were demons, really, because they didn't have that respect. And it took a while. I've got other stories around that, which I'm not going to share now. But there's the challenge. You know, we have to remember right now that we are not living in nirvana. This is not heaven. This is not a heaven realm, okay? This is earth, which is the realm of mud. And we need to look at the lotus flower. The lotus flower does not feed off fresh air and love and light. The lotus flower feeds off mud. So if the mud is turned into fertilizer only when we allow the mud to become fertilizer. So what does that mean in the situation of respect? Allow that person to be disrespectful and forgive them because they are being ignorant. When someone is respectful, they stand out. They shine, even though they might think no one is seeing me being respectful, but people do. And you know who? The animals see that. Animals notice and can feel that energy of respect. Animals feel that because it's got a particular vibration. It's got a harmonic. It's like a song. It's like a song. Animals feel that because it's in alignment with nature. Respect is where we align ourselves with Mother Nature. And respecting a plant, respecting an animal, respecting a human being means that you are in alignment with Mother Nature.
Wonderful, thank you, John. I think there's a similar question along that you've within that answer you've already answered. Oh, and another one just cropped up on the screen. Let me come back to it here. Yes, the one that you had already kind of answered was to do with when someone keeps being disrespectful to you, and you spoke to that one there. Another person has said, this is from Mac, saying, I'm doing all you say. It comforts me to know that there's so many of us doing this work. Let's just come down to see if there's a question. Saying that the biggest challenge is to trust the work that I do is being seen by spirit. But I find, it's moving again, to trust that it's being seen by spirit. But I find it frustrating to feel that I am not doing enough out there anyway. I feel myself aligned, and I guess that's what most counts. Yes, so I think that's more of a, there's more to it there, which might be a comment to have a read through afterwards. There from Max. Let's just see if there's any other questions on there, or maybe let's have a look. I think that might have been all of the questions there.
So I can add in something on this, just from a feeling that I'm feeling from some of the questions, and I just want to add in that, you know, when you are someone who's spiritual and you know, meditating, and maybe you're a therapist or a healer, and you know, you're doing your best to heal the world or heal your clients and you know, lead a good life, and then you see war happening like we're all witnessing, you know, it's very easy to feel powerless, a sense of powerlessness. You know, it's easy to feel that. So what needs to happen for all of us who are doing the work of healing, we have to also become warriors. And to become a warrior means that you need to also express that frustration and anger that you're feeling. You need to, you know, do some exercise, you know, scream into a pillow. You need to release it some way, you know. Animals do that, you know. So it means, you know, doing some exercise, you know, going to the gym and punching the punch bag. You know, Nelson Mandela was a boxer, you know, and he used to exercise and he used to box, and that sense of exercising is very important. You know, exercise comes from the Latin word, and it comes from the Latin word which means exorcise, which means to get rid of negativity. And so it's very important for us as humanitarians, and people who are trying to heal this world, that we look after our own emotional body and we become warriors, that we kind of up our game, you know. Anyway, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm coming in to remind you guys of the time. We need to close down. And I just want to express my thank you to you, John, for being with us. There is lots more questions coming up now, of course, as we
Yeah.
haven't got much time anymore. Somebody said, love your Mandela anecdote. How do you translate your beliefs into your own form of activism? And more stuff, but unfortunately, I don't think we have the time. So shall we just leave it at that, and thank you for what you brought to this
Thank you.
summit, really.
Yeah.
I loved your drumming, blimey, that
Thank
was a
you.
bit special.
Yeah, if people want to know more, they can look at my website, johnlockley.com, and I do monthly ceremonies, you know. So if people want to take part in the ceremony, then go onto my website, and I'm actually doing a ceremony tomorrow as well. So, you know, feel free to join me. Thank you.
You took it out of my mouth. I just wanted to say John's website is also in the program, and yeah, look him up. There's lots of fantastic stuff there. And if you want to go to the Kalahari, here is your guide.